Why were these bad boys blunt? Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria. So this is genuinely going to be a brief video. The reason being that I filmed a video for this evening that turned out hugely long and has taken a long time to edit, and I didn't get time to get it up for this evening. So I'm going to have a little window for you into my current research, which is onto poleaxe designs and their constructions, and it also relates to halberds. And very, very simple newsflash, I have discovered in looking at an increasing number of original halberds and poleaxes, and obviously they're different weapons but somewhat related, an enormous number of them, of originals in museums and private collections, are blunt. And this has shocked me slightly, and I don't know why. Now, I'm not saying that halberds and poleaxes are necessarily blunt for the same reason. If we just look at poleaxes for a second. So I've been looking at some examples in various museums that I can't share photographs with you, unfortunately, here for copyright reasons, but a large number of them have a very, very apple-seeded edge, which isn't that surprising because you think that would be robust, because bear in mind that these poleaxes are predominantly for fighting in armour, or at least for hitting armoured opponents, okay? Regardless of what you're wearing, they're designed primarily for dealing with armoured people. They're not optimum for dealing with unarmoured people, they are optimum for dealing with armoured people. Essentially, you've got a rundle, dagger, spike, usually at both ends, and you've got a hammer or a spike or beak on the back, and you've got an axe blade usually, or sometimes a hammer on that side. But if you've got an axe blade, you would think, I've always thought and I've always assumed, that fundamentally you've got that for smashing people in armour and you've got that for chopping up people who aren't in armour. But a lot of them seem to be blunt, like completely blunt. I don't just mean not sharpened, I mean they don't even really come to an edge. They've got an axe-shaped blade, but much like this replica here, which is blunt, a lot of the originals are exactly like that. So, first ideas. Is this some artifact of the ones that have survived in museums? Have some of them been blunted for some kind of weird reason? Because they were on walls, on display in castles or something? I don't know. That we don't find that with swords. Swords are often sharp, straight, you know, original swords, medieval swords are usually edged, and some of them are still sharp to the touch. Is it that the ones that have survived were ones that weren't used and they hadn't had the edge applied or something weird like that? Or is it that they were made blunt because they're for hitting armour, and we've been thinking about this as an axe blade incorrectly all along, and that this isn't actually a chopping axe blade, this is purely a narrow edge to focus force, so that it is one option for smashing into someone's leg or armour or neck or whatever, and it is really just you're hitting them with a heavy percussive weapon with a thin edge, but it doesn't need to be edged, and by not being edged it's more durable because it won't smash and chip and break against helmets and pauldrons and other hard bits of armour, so it's a more durable striking edge like a flanged mace. Is this actually like the flange on a mace and not a cutting blade? Final thought, is it because the surviving poleaxes in museums and collections are tournament weapons and they were blunt? Now, there is a clue to this in the deeds of Jacques de Leilang from the 15th century, where there is a complaint made about how sharp the poleaxes are, which would imply, therefore, that it wasn't normal for them to be that sharp. So maybe it is that some of these poleaxes are blunt because they were specifically made blunt for tournament combat, and they weren't made that sharp for safety reasons because they didn't actually want people to die, they just wanted them to be horribly maimed and hurt, or just to have a sport combat. So, you know, are they sporting weapons and therefore not edged? So that's poleaxes. Very briefly on halberds. Halberds seem to be divided. There are sharp halberds, so a different kettle of fish, and they are predominantly used by infantry for chopping down other infantry and cavalry in some cases. So they are edged a lot of the time, as are bills and glaives and partisans a lot of the time. But there are some halberds out there that are blunt. My pet theory at the moment is they are essentially ceremonial weapons that were never intended to be used. There are a lot of very ornate, very decorative halberds with etching all over the blades and crescent blades and all different types of design, some of which I don't think were ever really intended to be used, and if they were used, they were predominantly used with the top spikes as thrusting weapons anyway, and I just think they didn't get around to applying an edge on because those particular ones weren't intended to be used. But as mentioned, we do have other halberds which do have good edges on them. So the main question for me here is, why are so many poleaxes in museums, in some cases quite famous poleaxes, blunt? And I think a lot of people out there getting poleaxe replicas assume that these are edged, assume that these are sharp. They might even do test cutting with them or stuff like this. Go and look at the ones in museums. I think you'll be shocked how blunt some of them are. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Comments, questions, observations, feedback down in the comments. Hope I'd see you in the comments section. Cheers for watching. I have been Matt Easton, and I will be again next time. Cheers.